Live from the Score Atlanta television studios in North Atlanta, this is Georgia High School Sports Daily, powered by IBEW Local 613.
Hello and welcome to the Georgia High School Sports Daily, brought to you by IBEW Local 613. I am your host, Craig Sager. Today, I will be joined by Najee Wilkins via Zoom. We're going to have Hayden Gilbert on in the second segment to break down the brackets. We're going to be joined by the GHSA Executive Director, Tim Scott. We'll do our typical Monday check-in with Todd Holcomb, and then we'll have a weekend in review in the final section. Should be a great Monday show. We've got cross country to talk about, basketball season coming up, and of course the final Week 13 results for football. But let's go ahead and bring Najee on right now, and we'll talk about the bracket show we did on Friday. It was a 3-hour-long show. We had great guests. We really broke down everything. We had the results coming in live. From the remaining classifications, some big matchups. Hateville Charter beating Carver Atlanta in a wild game. Burke County beating Thompson. But Najee, what stood out about this final week of the regular season? Did anything really change your opinion? Were there any interesting results?
No, not really. I feel like Hateville Charter had a really good game. They ended up beating Carver Atlanta, shutting them down towards the end, 15-12 game. So that one's interesting. We know how good they've been all year. That was a result that kind of caught my eye a little bit. I really like Carver Atlanta, Terrius Favors, Latea Step. They're having a phenomenal year, but nothing really caught my eye too much. But I know you're going to have a great quote on the Marist coach, so that caught my eye as well, what he had to say about his quarterback. Very detail-oriented. But I really liked our show, man. I feel like it gave everybody a good platform, talk about the upcoming matchups they had, and I really enjoyed our segment when we talked about our championship predictions. I thought it was super cool and fun. And everybody's putting out who they think is going to win it all. I think it was super cool. Got some good results on social media, too, from a couple people DMing me and letting me know.
That's right. I saw Milton was watching Callaway. Two teams I predicted to win it all, so I'm sure they liked my takes. But, yeah, you mentioned having Coach Chadwick on. He's obviously one of the most successful active coaches we have. Marist made a great run last year. But I asked him about his quarterback, Jack Ewart, because he's a guy we've talked about as a potential Mr. Georgia guy. But we don't really know too much about his personality on the team. But, yeah, he was saying that he's so involved in just understanding the offense that Coach Chadwick has to be careful teaching him things at practice, because he'll correct him and say, well, you told us to go this way last week. And he says he has to, be careful of not changing his mind around him, because Jack's just so paying so much attention to detail. I thought that was incredible. A couple other quick results, though, from Friday we can talk about. I thought the New Hampstead-Ware County result was interesting. We knew that game wasn't going to impact the playoffs, but New Hampstead, they went out there and they said, we know we aren't going to make the playoffs. We want to go out right. We want to win this game. And they had another big performance. Maxwell, the receiver, he's gone off a few times this year. Rashawn Terrell got his last win. So I know they're going to be replacing a lot, but in terms of missing the playoff, I feel like New Hampstead still had a pretty exciting season. Some of the records they broke and some of the numbers they put up offensively is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's insane. I mean, you'll have some things you'll have to build on next season, obviously, from this year. But that was a great way to, end the year. We're going to probably have a lot of young players. Rashawn Terrell, he's a senior, unfortunately, his last year. But that game, one that stands out for me is when they played Perry. That game was insane. I think it was over, 150, close to points scored in that one. So they had some great moments, I thought, throughout the year. Just didn't have enough, I think, defensively to kind of get them into the postseason, which kind of hurt them. But I thought the offense was electric all year.
Yeah, those numbers are going to be crazy, and I'm sure they'll make a lot of those all-region lists. And then what do you think about the Hateville Charter win over Carver? It's a televised matchup, one of the biggest ones statewide this last week. What did you think for them to just win a close game and be able to take that region title?
I think they're battle-tested, Craig, to be honest with you. I mean, they've played some tough teams all year. They had a big win earlier in the season, and I think that they can lean on different pieces to come up big in the playoffs. And they can win in the multitude of ways. Not everybody can do that. They can win defensively. They can win offensively, scoring a lot of points. They can win via their special teams. They just have a lot of ways they can beat you.
Yeah, and they really are an interesting team. The way that they come on the end of the season every year is pretty remarkable. But let's go ahead. We'll get to the fast break. Headlines, we'll let you kick us off, Najee.
All right, so headline one is going to be Grayson defeats Newton for a Region 4 6A title. We talked about the crazy schedule that they had, but they was able to pull it out. They led by 20 points heading to the fourth quarter of Saturday's meeting for the championship. With Grayson in full control of the game, it kept pressure over the final 12 minutes, cruised to a dominant 43-13 win in the game. Travis Burgess finished the night with 11 of 15 passing for 165 yards and a touchdown. Also had a team-high 92 yards on the ground on just 6 carries. Burgess said post-game, the game plan was to come in and dominate. You know, last year it was the same situation, up 3 scores with 9 minutes to go. I think we came out in the second half and in the fourth quarter and dominated. Outside of 2 long Zion Johnson touchdown runs, Newton had no answer for Grayson on either side of the ball. Johnson gave Newton an early 6-0 lead from 78 yards out on his opening possession, and he later broke off an 85-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. But after that, it was all Grayson. They leaned on the rushing attack with Elijah Miller and Joel Bradford, who had a pretty big game, and also leaned on the legs of Travis Burgess as well for the win.
Yeah, and there was obviously like a 5-week period. No one was talking about Grayson because they weren't playing, but now they're the region champs again. Real quick, Najee, what's the biggest difference you see this year's Grayson team compared to last year, maybe?
It's a good point. I feel like they're potentially more ground dominant to a degree, and I feel like they have more legs at the quarterback spot. Now, that's no disrespect to the quarterback they had last year, but I feel like they have a guy that can be a true dual threat and puts pressure on defenses. We talked about him last week, clocked at 21 miles per hour running the football on a 68-yard touchdown. So I think they have that, and they got some receivers as well that nobody talks about. Underrated: Alexander Sanchez, Aiden Taylor, Jonathan Stafford. It's a different set, of receivers offensively, but I think this is a team that can run the football. They're going to play smash mouth, great defense. Players all over the field in defense that's stepping up big for them. Riley Drew, Tyler Atkinson, Anthony Davis. So many guys that are really good, but I think their quarterback is going to be the key question for how far they can go.
Absolutely, and that's a huge #1 seed. Congrats to Coach Bryant and his staff. All right, Najee, we'll let you take away headline number 2.
All right, for sure. So second annual Corky Kell Dave Hunter Basketball Classic schedule has been unveiled. I helped put this together. A lot of cool teams in here. You're going to have 2 DeKalb teams, Redan versus Heritage at 2 p.m. You're going to have Clarkston versus North Springs. That'll be an exciting game as well. Those 2 be making their first time appearances in it. Then you're going to have 5 p.m. North Paulding versus Norcross. 2 really good teams. North Paulding has Ava Andrews, who recently just committed to the University of Delaware. Norcross has Justice Fitzgerald. She's committed to Syracuse, so that'll be an exciting matchup. Then our first out-of-state team ever in Pinson Valley is going to make the trip all the way down here to play Norcross and face off their team, Nasir Anderson. So many just elite players on the Norcross basketball team. Jerron Salisbury, who's a 4-star player. That's going to be the nightcap. And then on Saturday, we'll be at McEachern High School. Newton is going to play West Forsyth. Newton just picked up a big win this past weekend against McEachern, 62-60. They got a really good team as well. West Forsyth is going to be rebuilding a little bit, but Grayson Smith is going to be one to watch. He won our player of the game last year when they played and beat Lanier. Then you got McEachern versus St. Francis. The girls' side, St. Francis just won a state championship, so they're one of 2 state champions in this classic, I should say. Should be a very intriguing game. And then you got 3 p.m. Josie versus West Forsyth. Josie was a state runner-up. Heavily favored in 2A to win this year. West Forsyth is going to have Marley Raymond and a really special point guard that nobody knows about, 2028 Hickson. She's very special. She's already, I believe, going to start at varsity as a true freshman this year. And then 4:30 p.m., Riverwood versus McEachern. Doesn't get much better than that. McEachern, like I said, coming off that close loss, got some really good players to watch out for. And Riverwood just won a state championship, and they're going to have that Stetson commit, J.R. Leonard, who is a 4-star player, and he's going to be one to watch as well. Just a prolific scorer, 3-level scorer, can get anywhere on the floor, mid-range, to the basket, extend from beyond the arc. Could do a little bit of everything, and he's a playmaker.
Yeah, there's some familiar teams, but also a lot of new ones this year. I think one of the things that stood out last year was when we watched that Baldwin game against Norcross. They lost, and then from there, they seemed like a different team. So it was very important for them to play that tough matchup earlier. What do you think about the Norcross boys and girls this year, real quick?
They are elite, Craig. I'll tell you this. In 6A, when you break it down and you look at it, Grayson's going to be a heavy favorite. But you gotta take it into consideration Wheeler and Norcross. Norcross is for real this year, Craig. Like, they're gonna make a deep run. This is probably the most talented team that Coach Mack has had in the past 5, maybe 10 years. Norcross girls, same thing with Coach Clinton. They're gonna have Justice Fitzgerald. They got a nice guard that just came over. I think her name is Janasia Spears, who came over from Southwest DeKalb. She's gonna help them in the front court, 6'1". So they're gonna have some pieces as well, and they should be able to make a run.
Nice. And Najee were pivotal in putting these matchups together. So great job on that. All right, I'll take away headline 3 real quick. The Marietta girls continued their dominant streak in cross country this weekend, and the Denmark boys, they won their first title. We talked last week about how they beat defending state champion Harrison in these sectionals, and they did it again, took the title, and then Marietta They were led by Hannah Naismith. She won the 6A individual championship, bringing the Blue Devils their 7th all-time. Denmark, they beat, it was their first state title, so congrats to them. Najee, real quick, let's go to headline 4, some of the early basketball results this weekend.
All right, so some quick results, guys. Peachtree Ridge, they beat Carrollton 49-31. Gideon Gamalu had 20 points and 8 rebounds in that win. Mountain View versus Bethlehem Christian. Mountain View won 63-48. Big win for them in the Battle of Gwinnett at Discovery High School. Padilla beat Berkmar 68-67. Heartbreaker lost for Padilla in that one. Rashad Holloway had 15 points for the Patriots. GSC beat Shiloh 55-36. In that one, Mike Carpenter had 17 and Vin Wynn had 11 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. And last but not least, Providence beat Mount Pisgah 68-50. Bryce Proctor had 18 points, followed by AJ Cantrell with 16 and Jalen Seymour with 11.
All right, so we got one more headline next. Let's talk about some of the first-round matchups that were set this week with the power ratings finally coming together. What sticks out to you, Najee?
I'm going to go Irwin County, Greene County. Greene County just picked up a big win against Warren County, 28-14. I'm featuring one of the players in there. Ivan Taylor had an outstanding performance. He led them with 2 interceptions, had an interception return for a touchdown. They got the quarterback who's underrated and Landon Garrettson as well. And then on the other side for Irwin County, Shane Marshall. Can you slow him down? Over 1,400 yards rushing this year. He's had an electric season. I don't think it gets much better than those two playing in the first round.
All right, well, I got just one in Class 2A. I think they'll be heavily favored, but still an interesting team, Cook and Burke County. This should be an interesting one. Cook's got a number 29 seed, but I think they are very underrated. So we will be back on the other side to break down some more brackets with Hayden Gilbert on the green screen.
Great teams are committed, focused on the details, and work hard to be their best. From practice to games, right down to their gear. Your field is a critical part of the game that allows your athletes to showcase their athletic abilities. Sports Turf is committed to bringing your team innovative sports surfaces with unparalleled performance. You bring the vision. Our team brings it to life.
The Georgia Sheet Metal JETC equips apprentices with the knowledge and skills required to start a rewarding career in the sheet metal industry with programs in HVAC, industrial welding, and testing, adjusting, and balancing. Training is 100% free and allows apprentices to earn as they learn. Journeymen graduate with no student debt and have the potential to earn more than most college graduates. Visit our website to learn more about this opportunity at careersinsheetmetal.com.
This makes my dad proud. He went through his whole career as an employee. Now I'm the employer, something he didn't achieve.
We are signatory to IBEW and do IBEW people wherever we go that we feel like they are faster and better than any of our competition.
The advantages of being a signatory contractor is you're trained employees. You have unlimited manpower. It allows me to bid on jobs that I ordinarily would not go after.
Man, you know how to do this? Man, I don't even know. I was flipping burgers last week.
Violation, unsportsmanlike conduct, impersonating a craftsman.
Skilled trade unions are well-trained career pros, not part-timers. Construction is a rewarding and lucrative career with the advancement potential, but you have to do it the right way with the right training. Learn how you can be a pro. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
Georgia High School Sports Daily is brought to you by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 613. Electrify your career.
Welcome back to the Georgia High School Sports Daily, powered by IBEW Local 613. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the brackets, some of them that were set already, but also now that the power ratings, we are going to get a chance to talk about these matchups for the first time. I'm joined now by Hayden Gilbert. We're going to start in Class 6A. We'll also bring Najee on to talk about some Class 5A matchups. But real quick, Hayden, Grayson, they get the win, pretty dominant victory. They obviously lost to Newton last year. This time, no questions were left unanswered. They ran away with that victory. Looking at that top left of the bracket there with Grayson, I know you were saying they have a pretty favorable path. What do you see as some of the top contenders out of that side?
I mean, you have to start out by looking at Collins Hill. Collins Hill has had a great season. They're the team that beat them in week 1, 20-19. At that point, they were still figuring stuff out. Both teams were. Both teams are very different now. And then you have to look at Colquitt County. They've won that region for the 3rd straight year, and they're always great. They're always going to be a tough out. They may not be as good as they were last year, but they're still going to be a contender in 6A.
That's a great point. And when you talk about some of the best defenses in Class 6A, I mean, Colquitt County, Collins Hill, and Grayson all in the same quadrant. That is some really good defensive programs right there. Let's go to the bottom left real quick. Our televised matchup is going to be North Cobb hosting number 4 seed Camden County. Do you think Camden County is probably the most dangerous number 4 seed in this 6A bracket this year? Or do you see some other potential road warriors?
I think if we're looking at a team that can truly make a run in a state title, it's Camden County. There's teams that can make an upset. I think North Atlanta has to play Peachtree Ridge. Darnell Cody's a great quarterback, but I'm not sure that they can make a run in a state title. Camden County is great. Elias Williams. They have is an amazing weapon that's going to be impossible for most teams to stop. I think Camden County is the best 4 seed out 6A.
And then I think an intriguing matchup, 2 teams we saw play in the Corky-Kell, West Forsyth and Brookwood. They both actually lost in the Corky-Kell, but I was impressed with Max Wildraven. West Forsyth has a great linebacking core, but the way Brookwood's been running the football, I said if a team is rushing for 280 yards a game, it's tough to get your defense off the field. Do you see Brookwood continuing to rely on Tyson and coming out victorious?
I think they'll probably come out victorious in this region. West Forsyth's a good team. They're always really well coached, but this year they're just not as good, as talented as they have been in years past. They've lost both Lambert and North Atlanta. I don't expect them to be able to win this game, but I think it'll be a close game. But I think Braden Tyson and that run game is just going to wear them down over 4 quarters.
And I've got one 6A question for Najee real quick. Obviously, I've talked about Walton a lot. Daniel Bruner has never not made it out of the first round of the playoffs. He's made it to the second round or further every single time since he's taken over. They play a tough Valdosta team at home. What's your thought on that matchup?
I think it's a tough one. I want to give love and credit because I love Coach Bruner. I love that Walton program. A couple years back, Craig, I know you remember I took them to actually upset Buford. A lot of people called me crazy, but they were able to do it. That's how much confidence I had. But this one, I just don't think it's a great matchup. I think they can run the football with obviously Deron Foster and Fennell, 2 sophomore running backs, 1-2 punch. If Ty Robinson's healthy, they got the playmakers on the outside and Eli Lewis, right? And Prince Jean, and then defensively, they got a really good defensive rush and pursuit and a good defensive front 7. And they got, obviously, Jalen Copeland on the outside. I just think this is not a good matchup for Walton, so I would go with Valdosta to win.
Yeah, it is going to be a tough one. Obviously, you got Carrollton, that quadrant 2. And then bottom right, North Gwinnett, that's a team ranked very high. They've made a run, and then Buford in that as well. Let's go ahead to Class 5A real quick. Najee, what's your take on this matchup? I think Hayden was talking about how he sees it maybe as a 3-man race, Lee County, Hughes, and Milton. But is there another team that you think has a chance to make that semifinal run or find its way at the bins this year?
That's such a good question, Craig. I do think it is a 3-team race. If I had to put my money on a team that could make some noise potentially, I would say either Woodward Academy or Gainesville, where they're at in the bracket, because they're in that top left, as you can see. Woodward will play Lovejoy. They can beat them, and then Gainesville and Woodward will potentially meet again. Remember, Craig, a few years ago, Gainesville lost to them in the playoffs. I think it was in the semifinals, and that ended up punching their ticket to the state championship game. So a lot of little revenge there. A lot of the same players still on the team. New quarterback with Kareem Hughley, who's very good, but that would be an interesting second-round matchup. And then, obviously, Brunswick, you can't sleep on them with what they got with Hayes Kent at the tight end spot and how electric he is. But I feel like it will work out good for those 2 teams in that bracket. Those could be some potential sleepers as well. Lanier, with what they could do with the running game, they could make a quarterfinal appearance potentially with Tawan Payton and what he can do.
All right, and real quick, question for Hayden. Region 1 in Class 5A. Sorry, not Region 1, Region 2, the one with Thomas County Central, Lee County, Houston County, Coffee. How many teams do you think are going to be able to make it out of the first round potentially in that tough region?
I would say at least those 3. I mean, Coffee has a very favorable matchup against Jackson County. Thomas County Central, they get to play Winder Barrow. I think they matched up really well with one of the weaker regions in 5A this year. Jackson County is a team on the rise. I expect them to have a really good I expect them to grow over the years, but I'm not sure this is the year. And then that 4A match, that their number 4 team in Houston County versus Clark Central, that's really interesting. Clark Central's quarterback is great. He's a Boise State commit. And then Houston County has a 4-star quarterback of their own and a bunch of other athletes. I think that's going to be a fun game. I think you can see all 4 come out there.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, let's go to 4A real quick. We'll talk about this bracket. Some teams that obviously won the region that I'm very confident in being able to handle the playoffs is Perry. They're going to play St. Pius. They did a great job earning that top seed, getting that home field advantage. Kell's got a really intriguing matchup against Hiram. Cartersville looks outstanding. I want to ask Najee about this matchup, though. I feel like it's a very tough one. How about Cambridge and Cedartown? Cambridge has done a great job passing the ball this year, but what's happened to the run game the last few weeks? Kell shut them down. BT shut them down. How important is it for them to find balance against a team like Cedartown?
You have to. I mean, I went and I called the game when they played up against Cartersville, and what they did, they had some long drives. They were able to kind of keep Cedartown off of the field. So that is what you're going to have to be able to do. They got to get Tyler Blaylock going in that one and be able to kind of establish that a little bit and keep the ball away. My concern is defensively, though, because Cedartown is going to limit your possessions. That's just what they're going to do. They're going to play that wing tee offense and play smash mouth football and ask you to be disciplined. I don't know if Cambridge can do that for 4 quarters. What I do like is their offense and their firepower. I feel like they can be quick strike, and I feel like they could put up a lot of points potentially with Tyler Jones, their head coach. They're having a phenomenal year. Just announced their region player of the year was their quarterback, Weston Taylor, and a couple of region first-team all-selections, too, on Hudson Cochera and obviously Craig Dandridge. So I feel like they have the offense to match up. My concern is defensively, though. I'm not sure.
All right, and we'll stick with Najee real quick when we go to 3A. The power ratings were a little surprising. Jefferson ends up getting the #1 seed, even though they lost to Coney County. I thought Peach County was going to get it, but that's big for the Dragons. I think they're a great team. They're going to play Monroe in the first round. They would have a potential rematch with the Coney County in the second round. Pretty wild stuff. You got Cherokee Bluff over there also. So 3 teams from the same region are in the same quadrant. So rematch potential there. Najee, what do you think, though, about Upson Lee and their position in this bracket?
I think it favors them, if I'm being honest with you, Craig. You look, they're going to play Long County potentially on that bracket. And then when you look at that lower quadrant, that next matchup would be Gilmer versus North Hall. And they wouldn't play a good team really until the quarterfinals potentially of who would be the winner of LaGrange and Sandy Creek. So to me, I feel like the bracket kind of hurt Sandy Creek to a degree. They only got a 4 seed, pretty much was dominant all year long. Then you got to play your region foe in the second round potentially with LaGrange, and then you have to go up against like a really good Upson Lee team later on. So I don't know. I feel like they should have been a higher seed. I also feel like Peach County as well should have probably been the #1 overall seed in my humble opinion.
I mean, it's really surprising, especially, I mean, some of the losses Jefferson had, also the one to Marist where they got blanked, but real quick, Hayden, what's your thoughts on the Jefferson #1 seed? And then in that top right bracket, do you feel like Peach County as a #3 can make that run?
So I'll start with Peach County. I think Peach County can definitely make that run. Coach Westbrook has been proven to be able to make those runs. He has 2 state championships, I think 4 finals appearances. And then when it comes to that top right or top left part of the bracket, it's really interesting because there's not just 3 teams from that region there. There's 4 Monroe area and Cherokee Bluff play in the first round. They're both from that region 7, from region 7. And then so Cherokee Bluff has to play them in the first round. Then Oconee County and Jefferson, they both would have to play each other in the next round. And there's a chance that you could see a Cherokee Bluff Jefferson quarterfinals appearance. Like there's going to be so many rematches in that quadrant because of the power rankings that we've never seen before.
Exactly, and I feel like there's the same thing with the Upson Lee, LaGrange, and Sandy Creek in that same quadrant. All right, so we're running out of time, so real quick, I'm just going to ask you what's your favorite first-round matchup in each of these classifications. We'll start with Najee in Class 2A.
Great question, Craig. Let me see. I didn't look at 2A too much. I'm going to go... I agree with you, Craig. I think Cook-Burke County is a very intriguing matchup. I mean, Burke County's had a great year so far. Cook is a really good team that's underrated. I think that's a good matchup.
All right, and then real quick, Class A Division I will go to Hayden real quick. Fannin County was able to get the #1 seed. You got the #2 went to Dublin, and then, #3 Heard County. What stands out about this bracket now that the seeds have been set, Hayden?
I think mainly that there's just that I feel like this is the top teams are kind of spread out. I feel like the rankings did their best job with this bracket. I really look at it. There's only a handful of games that you feel like or a handful of teams that you feel like, hey, this team's probably too low. One of those for me is probably Raven County. They play in that tough region. They play a tough schedule. Now, they haven't performed like they have in years past, and I don't think they're as good as they are in years past, but I think they have a matchup with Fitzgerald. They played each other a few years ago, I think in the quarterfinals. I think that's going to be one of the better first-round games in this bracket.
Yeah, that's a great matchup. I agree with that. And then real quick, Class A through private, I thought it's interesting. North Cobb Christian is going to get that bye, but so is Whitfield Academy now that Walker has forfeited. Najee, do you think that extra week is going to help a team like North Cobb Christian?
For sure. I think it gives you a lot of rest. I know the coach on our bracket show said he was opposed to it. He didn't really like it, would rather be playing. But I think you get some good rest. You allow them to go and get some more reps. I think it's going to help them at the end of the day. And like I said, I think they got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So I think they'll be fine.
And then real quick, Hayden, Fellowship Christian gets the number 2 seed. Can they stack up with a team like Hebron, Prince Ave, or Savannah Christian?
I think they definitely should be able to. They have all the talent. Their quarterback, I think, has got an offer this season from Georgia Tech. Like they have a wide receiver committee at UNC. Josh Petty, their best offensive lineman at Georgia Tech, come in at a 5-star. I think they should be able to compete with anybody. It's just in years past they haven't shown they've been able to. But I think this year they've shown more than any other year that they've been able to.
Certainly, they have some impressive wins. All right, well, we'll be back with the GHSA Executive Director, Tim Scott, on the other side. Go to scoreatl.com to check out the brackets.
Georgia High School Sports Daily is presented by GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com. Transform your future today. And by Smart Local 85. Sheet metal is a smart move.
Welcome back to the Georgia High School Sports Daily. Right now, we will check in with GHSA Executive Director Tim Scott to talk about this weekend and the fact that the brackets have been set for all of football, and we'll see how the weekend went for Mr. Scott.
Hey, man, how are you?
Doing well. Welcome to the show. So I want to ask about these power ratings. When we were having our bracket show, I think IJ had the idea that these teams would be huddled around waiting to see who they're going to play. How did this weekend go, just being able to finally set these matchups and look at it on paper?
Well, I think it went really well. I got to take my hat off to Don Core and Jay Russell. They did a great job putting things together for us. And then we actually did a Zoom, probably, I want to say it was 8 o'clock, 7:30, 7:45, or 8 o'clock on Saturday evening. And we did them just, like I said, AAA, AA, and private and single A. And just kind of went through all the rankings at that time and set the brackets up. And probably about an hour that had them posted.
And then I thought it was interesting in Class 3A, Jefferson was able to earn the #1 seed. And I think that's because they played a really tough schedule that went into the factors. They did have a loss late to a region opponent, but do you feel like the difficulty of schedule ultimately was a deciding factor in a lot of these placements?
Yes, in some it did have some. We had for example, a team goes 10-0, and another team may be 9-1 or 8-2, and then they rank just a little higher than the team that's undefeated with the power rankings, and that's due to schedule and how their opponents had done as well. So, but this was the first time. I think it went well for the first time, and anxious to see the playoffs getting started this weekend.
Certainly, and I think it's always interesting when Georgia does something that another state is able to copy later on. I know with these power ratings, you guys kind of use a hybrid model where you reward the region champions, but are there any other states that have looked at this successful first year with this and have reached out?
No, I haven't talked to any other executive directors on how they are ranking or how they're doing their playoffs, and we'll discuss, how it goes once it's over with, and kind of decide if we want to continue giving some preferential treatment to 1s and 2s, or those kind of questions that we'll talk to everybody and just kind of see where they're at. And we want to always work to continue to improve at everything that we do.
And then I want to pivot to basketball real quick, because we were talking about the Class A through 3A private and how there's going to be a lot of first-round buys, but obviously when it comes to basketball, there's more non-football schools in those private divisions, so there'll probably be less buys. But do you think that this year for basketball, the power ratings are really going to kind of improve the way that playoff bracket goes, kind of raise the stakes during the regular season and allow teams to really jockey for position?
Well, that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping to be more competitive and make it a little more exciting for those fans that are viewing and kind of keeping up with all that. So that's the intent.
And then travel is such a big part of the playoffs. Obviously, teams are traveling all year long, but once you get out of the region, there's going to be a lot of bus rides coming up this postseason. How does the GHSA help out with that?
Well, we do pay mileage to our teams, and of course, they split gates and those kind of things that we do. But it's in the end, it's going to cost the schools a little bit of money. We can't afford to pay total cost for all those teams, and some of them are coming a long way, and they may even have to stay in a hotel the night before because of traveling 5 or 6 hours. So certainly, that is part of what we have to do.
And then it was also a busy weekend. We had the cross-country state championships. They were able to go through without any weather delays. What's just the word you heard from Carrollton this week and just how that went?
I think the cross-country championships went really, really well. And of course, we had sectionals and cheerleading. And this coming Saturday, we have the state and cheerleading. So both of those are going real well.
Yeah, and gosh, it's crazy how many just individuals qualify for state for the cross country. Obviously, track and field has a bunch too, but you mentioned cheerleading. I mean, how many, what are the numbers like on that? Just how many girls are going to be going to that?
There's quite a few young ladies. I don't know the exact number and the teams, 32 teams and all the different classifications. It makes it real exciting, and that's going to be Friday and Saturday in Macon.
And then when we were talking about cross country last week, it seemed that you guys changed from, I guess, region champions to a sectional model.
We did do a sectional, and so with that sectional, a team could actually win their region. Their time may be the best of their region, and they be declared a region champion. But much like power rankings, their time didn't make it to state. So therefore, there were some schools that won a region championship in cross country, but did not qualify for state because their times weren't good, fast enough.
And then now that the power ratings are over, I take it no one has to calculate anything that happens in the playoffs. It's just going to be about wins and losses.
It's win or lose.
That's right. And then when are you guys going to do the first coin flip?
That's a quarterfinal round. So we'll do that in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to that. I'm glad you guys were able to have this successfully made out. It's very intriguing. I can't wait for these matchups to start. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next Monday.
Hey, thanks, man. Have a great one.
You bet. All right, so there goes Tim Scott. We will be back on the other side to catch up with Todd Holcomb and his latest newsletter.
Dang, where you get this car?
You need to join the union.
The union?
Absolutely. You can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.
A journeyman with Local 85, when you turn out, you can be hitting six figures.
Hey, I have your back, you have my back. We're gonna do this together. We're one for all for one.
College just wasn't for me. Let's look into actual career jobs that wouldn't take college, where I wouldn't, lose money and all that. Instead of losing a lot more money at the end, why not make money and make more money at the end?
The Mechanical Trades Institute is an opportunity towards personal financial freedom through hands-on and rewarding work. Our school is completely free and gives apprentices the knowledge and skills required to gain access to a lifelong career path. Apprentices learn pipe fitting, plumbing, mechanical service, and welding. They earn money as they learn and graduate with no student debt. Start a career with the Mechanical Trades Institute and change your financial future.
What happens after you graduate? Will you go to the next level? Will people have your back in the heat of the battle? Will you still train like a champion in pursuit of greatness? You will when you become an IBEW electrician. Join our team. Visit IBEW613.org.
All right, welcome back to the Georgia High School Sports Daily. Now we will catch up with Todd Holcomb and talk about this week's newsletter and the playoffs. So we got Todd right now. First question, just about the rankings. There weren't that many games. We talked about some of the upsets, but what did some of the shifts happen this week?
Well, yeah, like I said, not a lot of games, but Appleton County, we had them ranked number 1 after they beat Pierce County, and then they chose to play a non-region game against Fitzgerald, and I think their minds were mainly to get ready for the playoffs. Same with Fitzgerald, non-region game for both, but nonetheless, Fitzgerald beat them 21-16. And 4A is just so tight. There's basically 8 teams, and you could just pick them from a deck of cards and rank them however you want. But we put Carver or Columbus number 1, so they're now the number 1 team going in. That's the first time they've been ranked number 1 since Dale McGee was the coach back in 2010.
That's exciting. And then in terms of like a classification like 3A, you obviously did your rankings before the power ratings came out. But what did you think just of a team like Jefferson being able to get that number 1 seed?
Well, I don't love the power ratings that much, to be honest. So, Harlem's the number 2, and they're not ranked in really any polls, and they're the number 2 seed. I'm not taking away anything from them, but that's a good team. But I don't think that the rating system GHSA uses is that sensitive to strength of schedule, but it'll play itself out. Jefferson, they're fine at number one. They're not our number one ranked team. We think Peach County deserves to be number one, and I think they were probably the favorite to win the state, even though it's very much up in the air. A lot of good teams in 3A.
True. I thought 3A was interesting, and then in the private classification, the fact that Prince Avenue had those 2 out-of-state losses. If they would have lost at Hebron, they might be a 10 seed, but they're able to get the region and bump themselves up. But I want to ask you about this segment in your newsletter today, the Beating the Odds. Very interesting, the teams that were projected to not make the playoffs. Talk about some of the biggest underdogs that were able to get that playoff berth this year.
Well, I'm going to have to go back and find my list. But, one of them is Gordon Central. I mean, they I think in the preseason they were given a 3.6% chance of making the playoffs based on their history. It's not bad because, the computer does this. This is the actual ratings. So they don't know what players you have coming back who graduate, that sort of thing. And I think they started the season with a 31-game losing streak. So you wouldn't expect them to make it. So it's just great. Just a great story that they were 5. I guess they were 4-6 this year, but just almost won a couple of other games. They were tight. That's what Lenny Gregory, as the head coach. Of course, he won a state title with Collins Hill a few years ago when they had Travis Hunter. And then Chestatee had the longest odds at 1.8% of making the playoffs. They were 0-10 last year. Stuart Cunningham's the coach there. They went 5-5. That's in Hall County. So great job there. Some other ones that were long shots, like less than 10%, were Woodstock, Tri-Cities, ML King, Westside Augusta, and Lakeside Evans. Both those teams are close to each other. They have really good teams. They didn't just sneak in. And Lakeview, Fort Oglethorpe, East Forsyth, those are some of the other ones.
Right, and then there were some other teams that probably were projected to maybe miss the playoffs that ended up winning the region, like a Sprayberry, Ola. That was pretty impressive, too. I want to ask you just about the newsletter. Once you get into the playoffs, how do you decide kind of what to cover each day?
Well, for the first week, we just stay under the same plan. So tomorrow, we're going to have top performers for last week, even though there weren't many, because there weren't many games played. And then Wednesday, we always do a spotlight. Not sure what that's going to be. We may do something that takes a closer look at this rating system and what some alternatives out there might be. But Wednesday is always just a spotlight story. And then Thursday, we'll preview the top games, which we always do, like it's the regular season, the top 10 games. And then Friday, we'll do kind of a preview, just a primer on the playoffs that are coming up. And then once the playoff starts, it's just a lot of previews and a lot of game summaries, so it changes a little bit from the regular season.
And then one of the things I love that you guys do each week is the Pick'em Challenge, and it looks like you guys have a bracket challenge. Is that a new feature? I don't remember you guys doing this.
Yes, new. I've always wanted to do it, but we typically do have a predict the winner contest, and it's the 12 weeks of the regular season. And for some reason, we've not done it. Well, I guess the main reason we haven't done it for the playoffs is just a little more complicated. And so I just figured out a way to do it with, just kind of as a survey fashion where you just go through. You got to pick all 31 games, 31 games in each bracket. And so people can play all 8 classes or just one or however many they want to. And we got a nice prize for whoever wins. Just have fun with it. It's just supposed to be like a, basketball March Madness kind of thing. Just pick the bracket and see how you do.
That's awesome. And so there will be a winner for each classification. Is that right?
That's right. And the winner gets a what do they call it? It's just kind of the stadium blanket, you can put your favorite team on it, whether it's NFL, college, high school, wrap up on a cold night in December when you're watching the game.
Awesome. Well, I hope a ton of people participate in that, and it'll be interesting to see who's able to predict it. All right, we got the flag football player of the week from Milton this week, Audrey Jensen. She's a junior quarterback. What's that been like picking, Todd, what's that been like picking the flag football player of the week each week?
Well, it's fun because, flag football is new and it's got a lot of excitement around it. And these coaches and these players are thrilled, to be recognized because they're not used to it, at least not in football. A lot of these people that win these awards are really good athletes in other sports, so they're more used to maybe getting attention in those sports. And Audrey Jensen at Milton, Milton has, the dominant lacrosse program in the state. She's a lacrosse player there, and that's what she wants to play in college. But she's an excellent quarterback at the flag football level, and Milton's one of the best teams. I mean, they're probably one of the best 5 teams in the state. Would have a chance to win a state title in that sport as well.
Yeah, that is true. Their Milton lacrosse team, it's as dominant in any sport, any school in the state. And so if they have those players going out there, I'm sure they're going to be just fine. I like about the player of the week for flag, though, they play more than one game, and you guys have like the entire week to look at who the top performer is. I think you guys will be also critical in helping us just put together who's going to be the Mr. and Mrs. Flag football, just being able to highlight these top performers. So has anyone stood out just out of these player of the weeks that you've seen that maybe has a chance to be that player of the year?
You know, I'd have to go back and look at the list of those that have won it. But I will say the ones we pick are usually from the top teams. It's usually definitely a player that would be in contention for that award, because it hasn't typically been just somebody who has a good week while they're playing a weak schedule. It's usually these teams that are ranked in the top 10, and like Audrey, that you're gonna probably see them on TV playing in Mercedes-Benz in the finals.
And then I know you guys will be picking the top matchups to highlight this week. So do you go by that in terms of just the overall seeding, the record, or are you able to kind of look at some of the history and maybe some teams that are trending to pick these teams that are going to spotlight in the best matchups?
Well, we just kind of look through at, what looks like might be just the most intriguing game. And in the first round, it's not that easy because, most of the top 10 teams are not playing other top 10 teams. So, I mean, I think usually our top 10 games preview is like a top 10 matchup, but it won't so much be that way this time. So it may just be something interesting, like some traditional team that is pretty good, and how did they get stuck playing this other, good team? I mean, Rabun County's example, and then Fitzgerald, both of them are kind of on the brink of being ranked, but they're just traditional top 10 teams that happen to meet up in the first round, and it's completely across the state, because with the new point ratings formula, you don't have the traditional playoff brackets where teams normally play another team close by in the first round. It's kind of random. So you got somebody coming from, the North Carolina border all the way down to Fitzgerald, and things like, games like that are interesting. Clark Central, Houston County, that's another one where, Clark Central is kind of a sleeper team. They're really a lot better than most people realize, and they're playing at home. Houston County has this great offense, and A.J. Hill. So that's just another one that's obviously interesting. Then there are the obvious ones like Warner Robins, Marist. I mean, that's the most, biggest game on the schedule, I guess. For most people might look at it that way. So, Oconee County is another one. They're playing at Westside Augusta. Oconee County's on the road. I think they're one of the 5 best teams, and they got to go play, a region champion, I guess it is. Or no, out in Westside, they actually didn't win the region, but that's another good one, a good team like that having to play on the road.
Oh, for sure. And it's just interesting. You got Jefferson and Coney County and Cherokee Bluff in that same quadrant. And then you mentioned the Fitzgerald game. They've been, I think they were able to beat Thomasville this season. They'll be super dangerous. Same with Rabun County. But Todd, that is all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back with you again on Monday. And I'm looking forward to seeing all the content you guys have in the newsletter this week to get us prepared for the playoffs.
Hey, thanks, Greg.
You bet. All right, there goes Todd. We'll be back with our final segment to recap the weekend with Najee Wilkins. Welcome back to the Georgia High School Sports Daily. So we will recap some of the big happenings from this weekend, starting with on Saturday, Truist Park. I thought this was pretty exciting. It's the Georgia Dugout Fast Pitch All-State team. So softball just wrapped up, and the best players from around the state came together. I think it was 80 participants from 30 different high schools with the coaches. The GHSA, the Dugout Club, selected these teams from across all 8 classifications to compete. These students participated in an all-state showcase of exhibition games, skills competitions, and a home run derby. The winners from across the showcase competition received recognition in special ceremonies. Dozens of families, friends, and supporters gathered at Truist Park to cheer on the participants. Of the student athletes who were invited to participate, 60 players have committed to colleges, including 20 heading to Division I. So that was a great way to bring together the best of the state. I'm sure a lot of those players went up against each other in Columbus in the postseason, but they came together to just show Georgia's talent. So that was a very exciting event. I'm glad that they were able to get the game in, and Truist was able to host it. That is very exciting. All right, but let's bring Najee back in. We'll talk about some of the bigger results. Najee, was a tough weekend for Miami fans. You had Atlanta United advancing to the semifinals with a huge upset. The Dolphins play tonight. Maybe they can salvage it. And then Georgia Tech, you see that right there, one of the bigger upsets. So they're going to play Orlando next. They're still alive. And then you had the big thriller at Bobby Dodd. Georgia Tech beating Miami for the 2nd straight year. They stormed the field. Really exciting atmosphere. I'll go to Najee right now. Najee, how big of a win was that for Georgia Tech?
It was huge. It was big for what they're building and continuing to build. I think a program-defining win. 2nd year in a row, they were both eligible under head coach Britt Key. You get a top 5 win for the first time since 2009 when you beat Virginia Tech. It was massive. The environment was insane. It was electric. There was Hurricane fans there, of course, but I mean, you had everything. Haynes King banged up in that game, but then Aaron Follow throws his first career touchdown pass in college. Chase Lane with the critical catch. Romello Height with a strip sack fumble. Jordan Vandenberg getting the fumble, recovering it. Eric Singleton Jr. from Alexander High School having the first down that pretty much ended the game. It was an electric atmosphere. It was fun to watch. It was fun being there, being able to cover it. Electric win for the Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, I saw another stat. It was like the first time they beat a 9-0 team in decades. So very exciting. You've been talking about Georgia Tech's kind of health. Obviously, they've had Haynes King out. They've had some other injuries to the backfield. But how were they able to get guys to step up this week and be able to match up with Miami in such a big, critical game?
Just the depth that they have, and that goes back to recruiting, right? So Jamal Haynes, former Grayson star, had a really good first quarter, first drive, right? 65-yard rush. Then he had followed up with a 16-yard touchdown. He made a defender miss in the phone booth. Then he was done the rest of the game. And they had to lean on guys like Chad Alexander, Trey Cooley in the backfield. And then defensively, lean on guys like Rodney Shelley. After Warren Burrell wasn't able to play. And then Amar Daniels had a big game, number 21. He had 8 tackles in that game, a TFL and a PBU. But it just seemed like, Craig, whenever they needed a big stop, they was able to do it. It was a 3rd and 8, 4th down. Miami was 1 for 4 on 4th down in that game. They were very aggressive, but the Tech defense came up big. So thanks a shout out to the recruiting, shout out to the player development that they're doing at Georgia Tech, having those players ready.
And then what do you think about them being able to put Aaron Philo in the game and just what he was able to do?
You've seen bits and pieces of it the game before when they played Virginia Tech, Craig. He didn't have the best completion percentage, but he was making downfield throws. So I think they did good starting him. The second quarterback was actually Zach Pyron, kind of going into that Virginia Tech game. But then when I think they seen what Follow could do, they had to trust him, put him in that spot. And they actually rotated quarterbacks, Craig. It was Follow rotating in with King. King ran the ball 20 times, but he has an AC joint sprain, so he can't really throw it that deep. So Follow was coming in, and I'll give you 2 plays real quick, Craig. 3rd and 18 to start the 4th quarter, right? Big play. They in Miami territory. They don't convert it, probably have to settle for a field goal. He finds Bailey Stockton for a 27-yard reception. Another play. Miami has all the momentum. They just get a touchdown from Xavier Restrepo. 3rd and 8. Follow buys time and finds Malik Rutherford on a 3rd and 8 with like less than 4 minutes to go to extend the drive. those are the critical plays you have to get in games in order to win. And to do that as a true freshman in that environment speaks to how special Follow is going to be. Yeah, and I was so happy when Georgia Tech reached out and got him to commit there. I knew that was going to be huge. But with this win for Georgia Tech, Georgia obviously lost this week. In terms of recruiting, I mean, how huge is that matchup going to be in a few weeks, Georgia and Georgia Tech? It's massive. It's huge. I mean, you already showed that you could beat Miami, who's a college football playoff hopeful. Then you go at Georgia, right? Just lost to Ole Miss. Not an ugly win. Just had that video go viral. So Georgia's kind of, in a sense, I don't want to say reeling, but this is a massive game for Georgia when they play Tennessee because they're trying to keep their college football playoff hopes alive. But if you can go into Sanford Stadium on the road and hang with a Georgia team that has an elite defense and potentially win, then you're telling recruits, hey, we're right there. We're not too far off from Georgia. We can compete, contend, and win. I think it would do a lot for their recruitment. Absolutely. And speaking of recruiting, we had our big showcase this weekend at Blessed Trinity. Weathered some of that misty rain. Do we have some images from that? So multiple positions were filled for our All-Star Games coming up this December. It was a great event. The second time we've been at BT this year. And you can follow the Georgia Elite Classic social media to see some of the players that were able to earn invites. Very exciting to see those rosters coming together. It's going to be a huge event once again to get those players. Najee, what do you want to say? Yeah, real quick. I know we got to go, but I do want to tell you guys we're going to have our first ever commitment on the show. So stay tuned for tomorrow. It's going to be Trenton Juan Jogu, Kale Rod receiver. So I'm going to talk to him today. He's going to officially unveil his commitment. So that will be on the show. Me and Craig will be on. Probably lead into it, and then we'll have the commitment and then talk about it afterwards. But a major commitment coming up, first ever on our show, so stay tuned for that tomorrow at noon. That's very exciting news. Thank you so much for getting that set up, Najee. Cannot wait for that. We'll be back in the studio tomorrow for that. Well, I think that is all the time we have. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Monday. Go to scoreatl.com. You can check out all the results from the cross country and then look at the updated playoff brackets. We'll be back tomorrow for more.
No, just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at georgiaconstructioncareers.com.
Beginning the morning you opened your eyes, we spent every waking moment preparing you for the day you'd leave our nest. Whether it's driving to practice or helping with homework, it's all prepared you for, what am I going to be when I grow up? Will you be ready?
After much thought, I made my decision to take my talents to the IBEW Local 613.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers is not simply a job, it's a career. Visit IBEW613.org to begin a new future today.
Are you interested in becoming a deputy or a jailer? The Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office is hiring and looking for individuals passionate about protecting and serving their community. If you are 18 years or older, join our team by visiting GoGCSO.com for more information. Gwinnett County, together we can make a difference.